Hi, everyone. Welcome to the AVE webinar. Thanks for being here and for being a step closer to landing that dream of becoming a registered vet in Australia. So, we are going to talk about the top 10 exam prep mistakes that most overseas veterinarians make and how to avoid them. So, Dr. Antonella and I are going to be talking in this webinar. And if you don't know who we are, very shortly we're going to introduce ourselves. Anto, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so I think we're just going to start now, guys, because we are doing this webinar for 45 minutes. And at the end of the webinar, we're doing our questions and answer. If you have any questions, please type them now on the chat so we have time at the end of the webinar to go through all the questions. If we don't have time to go through all the questions, we will answer the rest of the questions on Instagram and also on the newsletter. Okay? But please type them down on the chat so you don't forget about them and we have time to go through them.
Do we start now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Scrolling down. Do you want to start, Nati, with the structure of the webinar for today?
Okay. So in today's webinar, we're going to talk about how to start your AVE journey. What are the most common mistakes that people make when studying for the MCQ exam? How Brainy Bilby can help you and what is Brainy Bilby? And at the end, you can ask any questions to me or to Dr. Antonella.
Okay.
It's very important to know that studying is often the hardest thing to do. But once you get into a routine, it becomes easier to maintain momentum. We all get stuck at, oh, I want to do the AVE exam, but I really don't know what to do next. And that feeling of overwhelm really kicks in. But everyone gets stuck in the same position. Just get started somehow and you will build momentum. Believe me.
Yeah, true.
All right. So before we start with all the exciting content, I do want to know where you guys are from. So if you guys can type on the chat, where are you watching this webinar from? From Australia, Sydney, Melbourne, maybe from the Philippines, maybe from, okay, India. That's exciting. Where else? So I am in Sydney. Dr. Antor is also in Sydney. What about the other 20 something people? Melbourne, Nepal, Pakistan,
Taiwan.
Taiwan. Wow, Sydney, New Zealand.
Okay, let's move. You can continue sharing where are you located, and yeah, we will read them in the end.
Alrighty, so who are we and why should you trust us, right? Um, that's the most important thing about this journey, that you need to find good mentors. And I guess everyone could call themselves a mentor, right? So why Dr. Antonella and I? So I'll start with myself. and then Anto will talk about herself. So I moved to Australia 8 years ago, and I am from South America, Colombia. I graduated on 2017, and I came to Australia with some English. I did know English, but I still came with a student visa. And of course, I came with little money. So a lot of people ask on Instagram, what can I do if I don't have enough money? Guys, we are all in the same situation. Coming to Australia is not cheap. You have to save the money in your own home country before coming to Australia, in my opinion. Um, Ideally, you want to be here to do the AVE exam. We wrote an article in our newsletter about that, and it's important, if you haven't read it, to go through it. Some people do try to do the exams in their home country, but I definitely think it's better to be here, and the challenge is the visa and the money. For me, and a lot of countries like India or Pakistan, unfortunately, Colombia does not have the best reputation, and it's really difficult for us to get a visa. We cannot apply to working holiday visa. I had to come with a student visa, pay an English course, and work part-time. Unfortunately, you know that on a student visa, you can only work part-time. And that's how I got here. And once I was in Australia, I started the process. I was working initially as a waitress, as a cleaner. I really started from the bottom. And I worked so hard while I was studying English, saving some money to start the AVE process. And after 3 years of being in Australia, I did the AVE exam, the first part of the exam. It took me a long time to find a job as a vet nurse. I personally think it's very difficult as an overseas vet to find a job as a vet nurse. A lot of the times, everyone thinks that it's super easy. You're a vet. Everyone will want to give you the opportunity. In reality, it's really not that easy. It took me pretty much 2.5 years to find my first job as a vet nurse. And yes, I started working as a vet nurse, and then I did the English exam. And then I did my eligibility assessment. I got accepted to do the MCQ. I did the MCQ. I passed. And then I got a job as a veterinarian under limited registration. Very difficult as well to get a job as a veterinarian with limited registration, guys. That's something else that is very important to know. And I worked as a vet with limited registration in a small animal practice for, I worked there for 3 years, but after passing the MCQ, I did the practical exam 1 year later, and then I got my registration on 2022. And I have it here in front of me because it's the biggest achievement of my entire life. It was such a hard journey. I definitely think it's the hardest thing I've done in my life. But I did it, and that's why we are so passionate about helping others, because we know how hard it is to go through this process. We know how easy it is to give up. And if it wouldn't have been for my partner, that I met him in Australia, and some people that I met along the way, I wouldn't have done it. Before I sat the MCQ exam, I remember I wanted to pull out and cancel my, I didn't want to do the exam. I didn't feel ready enough. And that's something that everyone feels. But I'm really happy I just pushed and pulled through and did it. Now I work as a general practitioner veterinarian in a small animal practice in Sydney. I've been working as a registered vet since 2022. I love internal medicine. My plan is to do the memberships in a small animal medicine, which is a type of exam that gives you an additional recognition. And I am passionate about ultrasonography. I love ultrasonography, and I have been putting a lot of effort and time to become good at it. And luckily, I have really improved. Now I get a lot of patients that come to see me. because of my ultrasound skills, all of those things that I'm doing is to escalate my salary, right? And grow as a professional. And what about you, Anto? Do you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, so my story is quite different from yours. I'm from Argentina, South America. I also graduated in 2017, and I came to Australia 1 year later with a working holiday visa. So being from South America, for example, Argentina or Chile, we have the opportunity to apply for a working holiday visa. That makes it a bit easier to come to Australia. You still need money and yeah, save for the tickets and and try to find a job. I only came for a few months initially. I wasn't planning to work as a vet. My plan was never work as a vet away from home. But yeah, after 3 years working mainly with horses as a stable hand as a stud hand in farms, um, all the almost all the time with horses, I decided that I wanted to take the exam. I needed to save money for all those exams. The salary as a stud hand and stable hand were not great at that time, but yeah, I decided that I wanted to try. So I knew my first step was taking the English exam. So that's what I did. My English wasn't great when I came initially, so I needed to really study for the exams, for the English exam. And then I sat the MCQ in 2022. And 1 year later, I did a practical exam. So in 2023, in between one exam and the other, I applied for a limited registration in New South Wales. And for me, it was a bit easier to find a job, mainly because I did an internship. I applied for an internship with horses. So my main work was always supervised. So for me, it was a bit easier than what I know that happens with small animals. After I passed the practical exam, I started working in a small animal practice, and I'm currently doing emergencies and critical care. I think that's my passion. So horses for now, for me, I am not working with horses anymore, but I really love the equine industry. Um, and yep, I currently live in Sydney, and in about 1 month, I'm moving to Perth. So moving to a different state, completely different legislation, different. I need to apply for another vet license. But yeah, that's my history. I am super happy doing Brainy Bilby mainly to try to help other vets to make their dream come true. I think it was super difficult for me, not only study for the exam and save money, also to feel supported. I didn't know anyone who passed the exam when I started. Everyone said that was impossible. So we are here, Natalia and I. We are here to make you feel supported along the way. So and tell you that it's possible. It's possible to come from different countries, coming from countries that don't speak, like the primary language is not English, having no previous experience as a vet, and now working, as anyone else in the industry. We worked in different areas, but that's our history. We also share our history in Substack. We have a newsletter, so you could always go back to our previous posts if you want to read a bit more about my internship, about Natalia's first job as a veterinary nurse. So we could share the link here later. You're mute, Nati.
So there's a lot of useful information in a newsletter, and we can share that with you. Alrighty, so Your AVE journey starts here right now. Why? Because you're taking the first step to becoming informed, right? I think that, like Antonella said, when we did the AVE exam, I didn't know anyone. She didn't know anyone. Eventually, I met one person from Pakistan. He did the AVE, he had done the AVE exam like 12 years ago. And that's it. I didn't know anyone else. And everyone around me just said how impossible it was. So we're going to talk about the overview of the AVE process. How is the process? That's the first thing that you need to know. What are the most common challenges? Sorry, just a second. No, actually, Anto, before we move into that slide, we do want to talk about the process exactly over there.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, I can go through kind of the overview. So we created a checklist. I think could be very useful and to have it, to print it and go step by step, so you could always review it later. But first is checking that your veterinary qualification is accredited. So make sure that your university is on the list of world's listed universities that will allow you to sit the AVE. So we know there are many universities who are not on that list. That makes the AVE journey impossible. Everything that we are saying is on the AVVC homepage. Then, if you are eligible to sit the AVE, there are a few steps that you need to do. First is sitting the English exam. Second, getting the eligibility assessment. So basically presenting all the paperwork that tells you, that tells them that you are a vet, a recognized vet in your home country or in the country that you studied. Then you need to sit, when that eligibility assessment is approved, you are able to sit the MCQ, which is multiple choice question exam. It's at the moment is held once a year, usually in April, in different countries and cities. And after you pass this MCQ exam, you have to sit the practical examination or the final clinical examination. This is held in Queensland a couple of times a year, usually one between June and July, and the other one between November and December. And you have to travel over there. Even if you live in New Zealand, if you live anywhere else, you need to travel to Queensland, to the University of Queensland. And at the moment, that practical exam has 9 different exams that you need to sit all together in 5 days. Yeah, that's basically what the exam is about, like all the process exam is about.
Yeah. And with the English exam, so the English exam is very important, and it's usually the first part of the process. And there are different options. So you can do the academic IELTS, you can do the academic PTE, you can do the OET, which is the occupational English test, or you can do the TOEFL IBT. We also have a post in our newsletter about the English exams because it can be quite confusing. That's a decision you need to take quite soon if you want to do the exam on 2026.
Yeah.
So what we have seen with our students is that they face common challenges when deciding that they want to do the AVE exam. And the first biggest feeling is overwhelming. They feel so overwhelmed because they don't know where to start. They are unsure about how to proceed or what is the next step. They procrastinate as a result of the anxiety that generates. There is confusion because there's so much information out there. you really don't know that many people these days. May be different because, you know, of social media, Facebook and WhatsApp. You can feel isolated because you can be in your own home country and you feel super far away from Australia and your dream. You feel impatient because you're desperate to come to Australia, but you may not have the money. You may have a challenge with the visa, and all of those things add up to the stress levels for sure. Um, we're going to give you some actionable steps or some steps that you can actually do to get started with your journey. So that feeling of confusion, of I don't know what else to do or what to do next, is going to be over. So if you can really take note of this, like in your phone, paper, to do, you're going to say to do for this week, or you're going to say, have a look in your calendar in your phone and put, literally write down a task. You're going to say, okay, on the 21st of June, I'm going to download and read the whole AVE booklet. It's a PDF booklet for free that you can download from the Australia Veterinary Boards Council. 70% of overseas vets that do the AVE exam actually don't take the time to read this PDF. And it's very important to read because it's actually quite well written. I think it gives you a lot of information and it's really clear. A lot of the times, the questions that all of you ask me on Instagram, it's answered on the AVE. It will literally fix that confusion. So you're going to assign a task for yourself and say, because if you don't assign a day, a time, you will never do it because it's boring. Who wants to read a PDF about the AVE exam? No one. You just want someone to tell you what to do. But it's very important to read it. So assign yourself the task, read the AVE booklet in PDF format. We can actually send you the link as well, but if you type in Google, it will appear and you go into the link and read it.
Yeah.
The second actionable step that you can do is to watch our video. We did a video, a detailed video with all the things that you need to do to validate your overseas veterinary degree in Australia. That video is on YouTube, and if you go to our Instagram, to the link in bio, it's there. We can also send you an email with this link. And you're going to assign yourself once again in your calendar, in your busy calendar, you're going to say, okay, tomorrow at my lunch break, I'm going to watch that YouTube video if you haven't done so. The third actionable step is to read our eligibility assessment checklist. Anto took the time to summarize what is it that you have to do and what is it that it is the eligibility assessment. And we can also send you that link. Anto wrote an article in our newsletter about this. The fourth actionable step that you're going to do is you're going to decide which English test is it that you're going to do. So a lot of people spend a lot of time and energy just trying to decide, why did you do the OET? Why did this person do the academic IELTS? And like people just get so overwhelmed by this. So just decide which English exam you're going to do, find out how much it is, and study and prep for the English exam. Even if your English, even if you feel like your English is amazing, even if you feel like you live in an English speaking country, it's not about your level of English, it's about understanding the English exam. Actually, guys, the majority, we're going to talk about this shortly, but the majority of students or overseas veterinarians get stuck in this step. They postpone the English exam and they start studying for the AVE MCQ first, and then they realize that they need to do the English test. They don't pass because you need a very high score in all the different papers. How do you say that? In listening, in speaking, in writing, etc. You need a very high score, which is very difficult to get. If you don't get a high score, let's say in speaking, but you got a high score in the other sections, you won't be accepted when you send the paperwork. So it's very important to get the English exam done and over with. So put it in your calendar, give yourself a deadline. When is it that you're going to decide which English test to do, and inform yourself and study for that exam. And the fifth actionable step that we're going to give you is to become familiar with the eligibility assessment process and know the paperwork that they require from you. It's a lot. You need to translate it, and it takes forever to get all the paperwork together, so you can start doing that now. All right.
Yeah, and before we move on, something else that I find vets get confused, get overwhelmed, that we haven't mentioned, is to decide whether to take the Australian Veterinary Examination, the NAVLE, the American one, the Royal College of the UK. So there are all different exams. So I think before you start studying for one to the or the other, you need to decide which exam to take. I think it's a waste of time saying, I will take the NAVLE, and then, oh no, maybe I want to do the MCQ. There are completely different exams because there are different countries, different prices, different ways to sit the exams. So I say that's one of the things that also causes confusion, and that you have to decide before you start one journey or the other. So yeah, that's something that I wanted to mention. We also write a post on Substack a while ago with the differences between one and the other, so you could always review them. But I think it's a waste of time start to studying only to study something in English and then switch from one exam to the other.
Okay, so we're going to start with the top 10 MCQ mistakes that overseas vets make when studying for the AVE exam. Number 10, it's having no breaks. What do we mean by this? We have seen that a lot of people don't give themselves enough time to study for the exam, which is another mistake. And they literally try to get a lot of study done in 4 months, 3 months. And it really leads to burnout. And people give up their social life, their family, exercise. They start to eat very unhealthy. And this really leads to no progress and a lack of focus. And eventually it leads to, being very, very, very stressed. It's very important to allow yourself to have plenty of time to study so you can still continue to be a normal person somehow. Of course, there are things that we will have to sacrifice, but you still want to be able to go for dinner on the weekend with your partner, with your, best friend, go for a walk, go to the beach, or do something that you like, do exercise, because all of those things are very important to be on a good mental state. The other thing that is very important that we have seen with the students that don't pass the AVE exam, it's that your emotional state and stability is super important for the AVE exam. What do I mean by this? If you are going through divorce with your partner, if you live in a violent home, if you don't have financial stability and you're working 12 hours a day every day, if you don't have a safe place to study because you live in a shared house with 20 people and there's a house party every single night, all of those things are going to lead to mental stress, lack of progress, lack of focus. You won't be able to study as efficiently as someone that has a safe emotional relationship, has a little safe place to study. So all of those things are usually not taken into account, but are very, very, very important. You need to be on a good mental state to actually study for this exam. Number 9, no review, there is no retention. When you start your journey and you study, you're going to realize that all the things you studied a few months ago, you forgot. And that's something that creates a lot of stress in everyone. In reality, there is no review, there is no retention of the information you have learned if there is no repetition. Unfortunately, retention comes with plenty of repetition. So you have to allow time to review all the things you have studied. So a lot of the times when people sit down and study, they don't allocate time to review, and they just go through all the things that they have to study in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, a year. And then they are super stressed, and then they realize they forgot everything, but they really didn't allocate review time in their study calendar. So remember, we all forget, we all have to learn by repetition. Number 8, and this is a big one, studying in isolation. At the beginning, it might seem manageable at first. A lot of people say, oh, like, I can't afford your course. What else can I do? Tell me the books I need to study. It becomes mentally exhausting to study in isolation. It's very easy to lose motivation. You need a mentor. You need someone that pushes you. You need to be part of a study group. You need to be part of a community of people that offers perspective, guidance, and encouragement. You need someone that makes you accountable for your studying, for the process, because otherwise you will feel stuck, you will lose motivation, and a lot of the times people end up running behind in their studying schedule, and then 2 months before the exam, they realize they have a ton of study to do and they burn out. Number 7, Anto, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so studying in your own language could not help for the exam. So personally, what I did, I know is different from what you did, Nati. You could share your experience. So at the beginning, I prefer to study in my native language, mainly to get used to the rhythm of studying again, right? After 3, 4, 5 years without studying anything, I needed to get used to, or my brain to get used to studying again. So I found it easier to study in Spanish, mainly the pathophysiologies of some diseases, to then slowly switch to English, because the exam is in English. So you need to be able to understand a sentence, a paragraph, be quick when you read. So we highly recommend you to study in English. If you need to study in your own language first, that's completely fine. But you need to understand that you need time to first study in your own language to then switch or do the transition to English.
For me, oh, sorry, you were going to say something else?
No. Just
okay. So for me, and it's good that, it's Antonella and I, because I do have a different opinion. I knew that if I wanted to work as a vet in Australia, I needed a really good English. If I needed to pass the exam, I needed to have a really good English. For me, studying in my own language was a waste of time, because I needed to get familiar with the vocabulary, to be successful. So I think that if it takes you slower, or if you feel like it's more challenging to study in English, it's very important to do it, because you want to train your brain and you want to be able to process that information. You're going to be tested in English. You need to have a good English to pass this exam. And it's not like an average English. You need a really good English to pass this exam. A lot of the times the students don't understand the questions. They don't understand what they're being asked in the question statement, and they end up failing because they don't have a good English. So it's very important to start improving that English from the very day you sit down and study. All right, so this is a big one, number 6, not studying practice questions early. What do we mean by this? You know that the AVE exam, the first exam, is an MCQ, multiple choice questions. We have seen with our students that a lot of people leave practicing questions for the very end or the last 2 months. It's very important to don't wait and feel ready to start taking questions, because this is a powerful learning tool. The practice questions helps you identify weak areas. It helps you realize of topics that you have no idea about, and you go and review that. It's a different study technique. You will realize that it's very important to change techniques. You don't want to sit down all the time and be reading because you would literally fall asleep. So practicing multiple choice questions from the very beginning is super important. Whether you do it from the Mosby books, whether you do it from our website, whether you do it from other platforms, but it's very important to do it from the very beginning. Do you want to talk about this one? Or
Yeah, so the number 5 is starting with your favorite topics. It's very easy when you start studying for an exam to do the topics that you feel more comfortable or you like more or you have more experience first, leaving behind the ones that you don't like or are boring. And I think it's studying the topics that you like is as important as studying the ones that you don't like. For example, epidemiology, preventive medicine, public health are topics that horses are topics that people do not like, or try to avoid to study because it's something that almost no one likes. But I say to keep the motivation, do the topic that you like, then a topic that you don't like or that you find more difficult, and then another one that you find easier. So try to do that practice from the beginning and not leaving behind or till the end the topics that you don't like.
Number 4, and this is also related to the last one, focusing too much on one species at a time when you study. I myself made that mistake. And when I was studying for the AVE, I studied for 1 year, and then the exam got canceled because of COVID. So I had another year to study. But at the beginning, I did study per species. So horses, and then I study all horses. Then cattle, all cattle. Then dogs, all dogs. And I find that you focus too much on one species at a time. But it's important to know that when you take the exam, you're tested on every single topic mixed all at once. So you need to switch information readily, like straight away. And that's a skill you need to develop. And it's better to actually mix all the species instead of focusing on one species at a time. Anto, do you want to talk about the paper and the amount of questions per species?
Yeah, so everything is on the booklet, but you have 2 papers, paper 1, paper 2. Paper 1, I don't remember exactly, they changed the exam questions not a long time ago, but paper 1 is based mainly on basic knowledge. We don't know how many questions we have for each species, but yeah, it's basic knowledge, anatomy, physiology, toxicology, preventive medicine. And then paper 2 is mainly critical thinking. So you will be presented different cases and you need to be able to have a good approach to that case. So you will have cases from dogs, from cats, equine, horses, small ruminants, and you will see different scenarios as lameness, vomiting and diarrhea, and you have to have that clinical approach as if you were having that case in front of you in a clinic. I personally find both papers were kind of very similar, so I don't actually remember which one belongs to paper 1 and 2. I think the way they ask the questions are at the end of the day tends to be very similar. And you still need a high score, like a good score in both of them to pass the exam. So I haven't studied paper 1 first, paper 2 second. I did an all together because at the end of the day is the way they want you to study.
Yeah. So number 3, and the mistake number 3 is studying for less than 6 months. We personally think that it's a waste of energy because it's so much a study that you have to do. Usually people that study in less than 6 months, 4 months, 3 months, they fail. I have met a few that have passed, but it's very important to know that those people study full time. They live in Australia and they have someone that is supporting them financially. There is no way you can study for the exam in 3 or 4 months, still work and have a life. It would be extremely stressful, and I personally don't recommend that to anyone. The 6 months is the bare minimum amount of time to study, and we still encourage you to at least take 10 months to study, or a year ideally. Number 2 is studying before sorting out the eligibility assessment paperwork. As we talked about the beginning, you have to have all the paperwork ready to go because it takes time, energy, and brain energy, and it's stressful. Get that done first and then study for the exam. And the number 1 and most, the biggest mistake that a lot of overseas students make, it is something that everyone really makes, is they don't get the English exam done and out of the way, and they just decide they want to study first. So guys, the English exam, once again, it's difficult, it's expensive, and not because you have a good English, it means that you're going to pass. You have to study and prep yourself for the English exam. You have to have a tutor, take a course either online on YouTube, buy the practice exams. It's really not easy. You need a very high score in all the sections of the English exam. A lot of people give up on their journey because they keep failing the English exam, and then they realize they are running out of time to apply to the exam, and they don't have enough time to study for the MCQ exam, and they just get super stressed. So don't study for the test if you haven't done your English exam. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so now we're going to talk about briefly, very, very briefly, about what Brainy Bilby is and how we can help you with your study journey. And then we're going to go through the questions. Do you want to talk about Brainy Bilby, Anto?
Yeah, so between Natalia and I...
Let's do the next slide.
Sorry. Yeah. So with a lot of effort, work, we are still working to improve and give better resources to anyone who's interested to have our support. We created a homepage and a project which is called Brainy Bilby. We've been working hard for more than 2 years now to create something to help overseas students to make their journey a bit easier. We know you have to study. We know how hard it is, but we want to make that journey a bit easier. So for the MCQ exam, we offer a mentoring course. The first time we did this mentoring course, like the complete course of 6 months, was last year. And we think having that support along the way while you are studying could help you keep the motivation up. So we created a 6 months mentoring course to help you organize yourself. We created a calendar so you know exactly what to study when. with a checklist of topics that you should review. Also, we have resources, some resources that are free to access on internet, and some others which are created by us. We find it super important to study from different resources and not to follow a presentation or notes from someone else, because I think that's not enough to pass the exam. Even if we passed the exam at once, giving our notes or where we study from, I think is not enough. You need to study the same information or similar information from different resources. And then we also offer an MCQ practice, which is MCQ questions that we created. Do you want to explain a bit more, Nati, about those ones?
So the MCQ practice questions is a different course where you can get access to questions that have been designed for the Australian Vet exam. However, right now we're not offering that course because we are updating the course. We are providing explanations to every single question. But if you guys want to have a structure, want to know more about the Australian questions for the exam, this is the only multiple choice questions that are available in Australia for this exam. The other ones, like the questions in the Mosby book, it's more for the NAVLE, but still can be useful for sure. But these are the two main things that we offer. And then the other one, if you go to the next slide, is we do have some study guides as well, which are some PDFs. Poultry guide, pathology guide is mainly for the practical exam, but it can be useful for the MCQ. And we have an equine guide. So yeah, so if you want to get organized, if you want resources, if you want mentorship, you can join the mentoring course. The live one starts in September each year. And before we finish, let's go through the questions. Remember to please write the questions on the chat. So let's go from the very beginning. So Kapil asked, my question is that can a vet who has completed his degree from India and have cleared the BCSE and NAVLE practice in Australia?
That depends. I will say that depends on the state that you want to practice. Every state is different, and a few things have changed since COVID. So I know during COVID, vets were allowed to register as with a limited registration in New South Wales. At the moment, I don't know, but I don't know, Nati, what you think, but that's a question to do to the veterinary practitioners of the state that you want to register.
Exactly. You have to contact the Australian Veterinary Boards Council, and you would still need to apply for registration. It's not that you come here and start working as a vet. You need to literally ask the Australian Veterinary Boards Council if you're eligible to apply for registration. So you need to directly contact them and write an email, because it will be exactly different in every state. So yeah, that's something that we really can't say yes or no. It depends on them. The other question is, let's see, Jivan. I am a final year vet student from Nepal. My question is, once we pass the MCQ exam, how can we, time is over, but let's finish that question. How can we do temporary registration and find job offer from New South Wales clinics in order to get a visa? So first, I think that, of course, make sure that the university that you're currently studying, it's in the world listed of universities, to make sure that you can apply to see the MCQ exam. Once you pass, you are eligible, you pass the MCQ, you can register as a vet under limited registration. How do you find a job offer? By looking at jobs whilst being in Australia. I think it's impossible to pass the MCQ while being overseas and get a job while being overseas, because it's very difficult to get a job under limited registration. A lot of employees are very hesitant about that because you're considered a new graduate. So you have to go to places like JobSeeker, Kookaburra, literally all the places that Google will tell you. You need to be in Australia because they will call you for interviews and all of that. I think it's very difficult to get a visa, a sponsorship, when you have limited registration. If you are looking for a sponsorship, I would say it's better to have the full registration as a vet. So having done the practical exam as well.
Yeah.
Gajasri said, I am a vet from India. Right now, I am in Brisbane and I'm searching for a vet nurse job. I want suggestions from for that. So I guess we'll answer this last question because it's been more than 45 minutes. And then the other ones, if you can type them down, guys, and we'll answer them on Instagram. Yes, so we wrote a post about finding a job as a vet nurse on our blog post. I think that Anto and I will have different opinions. I think that it's difficult to get a job as a vet nurse while you are an overseas vet. And it depends on the state. So, for example, in Perth, you have to do the TAFE vet nursing course, unfortunately, even if you are a vet. And in Sydney, you don't have to, but some employers do ask for that. And sometimes you will find that you have been looking for a job and no one calls you. And then if you do the certificate for in vet nursing at TAFE, it may be a little bit easier to get that phone call. But there is really not specific advice I can give you other than really work on your resume or CV, how to make that resume like a winning resume and how to make them actually want to call you. Volunteering is important, but once again, it's not easy to find a volunteering position in Australia, unfortunately. You need to be able to work somewhere, even as a kennel hand, for example. If you find that you don't find a job as a vet nurse, I will start as a kennel hand. Of course, it's nothing to do like a vet nurse, but with a kennel hand, you may get more calls. And once you have been working as a kennel hand for a few months, then you will have an employer in Brisbane or Australia that can work as a reference from a vet hospital, and that could help you a lot at getting a job as a vet nurse. I don't know if you want to say something, Anto?
No. I completely agree with you. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Before we go, we will share all the questions and we will answer them on our Instagram pages. I just found on the, I don't know if you are able to see the chat, Nati. There are a few notes saying AI note taking. So I don't know where those links are coming from. So please do not click on them. I don't actually know where are they coming from. It's not us, just letting you know, because I have noticed that they've been posting on that chat. So yeah, that's the only thing I want to mention.
Yeah, I guess in Australia, everyone is really aware of scams. So anyway, so for the other people that have asked, of course, we're gonna save the questions and make sure you follow us on Instagram. So Dr. Antonella and I and Brainy Bilby, and we'll answer your questions. Okay. For now, thank you so much for joining, and make sure that you check our website, Brainy Bilby, and we can send you the links, I suppose, of the links that we kind of talked about on the webinar. And yes, so have a good night, guys, and we'll be in touch on social media. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.